A teenage girl walks into a mall on a bright Saturday afternoon, just hoping to show off her birthday gift, a sparkling luxury watch from her mom. But when a white police officer sees the watch on her wrist, he doesn't see celebration. He sees suspicion. Within minutes, laughter turns into panic, handcuffs replace friendship, and a quiet outing spirals into a public incident no one was prepared for. A crowd forms, phones come out, and a mother's worst fear turns into her fiercest moment. What happens when authority is weaponized against innocence, and the truth refuses to stay silent? Heidi Hanson adjusted the strap of her new Rolex for the third time, not because it was loose, but because she still couldn't believe it was real. The metal was cool against her skin, heavy in a way that made her feel important. Every time the light hit the dial, it shimmered, sharp, clean, undeniable. She smiled, not a smug smile, but the kind of quiet, private joy that bubbles up when something you love becomes yours, when a small piece of the world feels like it finally sees you. 14 today, or, well, 4 days ago, but this was her celebration. Her mom had pulled some strings, cleared the weekend, and handed her that little black velvet box with a look on her face that Heidi would never forget. "I don't want to hear anything about the price," Monique had said. "You deserve to feel seen." Heidi hadn't argued. She knew better. Her mom wasn't the kind to throw money around, but she was the kind to make moments matter. Now she stood near the front entrance of Brook Lane Galleria, tapping a message into her phone. "Just got here. By fountain." She hit send and glanced up at the crowds moving in waves around her. Sneakers squeaked on the polished tile. Music from one of the boutiques thumped behind glass. A group of teenagers rushed past, laughing, one holding a milkshake like a trophy. Heidi tucked her phone into the pocket of her crop jacket and exhaled. "Hey, watch out," a voice called. She turned just in time to see Bree Johnson burst out of the crowd, arms spread like she was landing from a parachute jump. Her braids bounced with each step, smile wide, breathless. "Took you long enough," Heidi said, laughing. "Girl, don't even. My mom had me doing errands all morning. You look mad cute, though. That hoodie's fire." "Appreciate it. You look like you sprinted here." "I did." Bree leaned on the railing near the fountain and fanned herself with one hand. "Tell me you brought money." Heidi raised an eyebrow, then slowly held out her wrist. Bree's eyes widened. "No," she whispered. "That's the watch? From the story?" "Yep, Heidi." Bree dragged out her name like she was praying. "That thing is shining. Yo, that's a whole-grown woman watch." "My mom said I earned it," Heidi replied, trying not to blush. "Grades, behavior, chores. Plus, she worked overtime last month. Well, tell Sergeant Hanson I said she's legendary. You better not leave that thing in the food court or something." "I'm not dumb." And as they started walking deeper into the mall, the two of them slid into their usual rhythm. Fast chatter, playful jabs, and the kind of ease that came from years of friendship. They ducked into a sneaker store, then the beauty supply shop, flipping through lip glosses they couldn't afford just to talk about them like they could. Heidi noticed people glance at her wrist now and then, but it wasn't anything new. That watch caught light like it was made for it. By the time they reached the second floor, the energy started to shift. It was subtle at first. A mall cop standing near the escalator seemed to stare a bit too long. A woman holding a shopping bag took one look at them and pulled her purse a little closer. Bree noticed too. Her jokes got shorter, her eyes darting more. People really still acting like this in 2025? Bree muttered under her breath. You'd think being black in a mall was a felony. Heidi rolled her eyes. Let 'em stare. But just as they turned the corner toward the food court, a deep voice boomed behind them. "Excuse me, miss." They both turned. A uniformed officer, not mall security but real police, strode toward them. He was tall, stocky, with a square jaw and mirrored sunglasses pushed up onto his buzz-cut head. The name tag on his chest read Granger. "You two shopping today?" he asked, but it didn't sound like a question. It sounded like a warning. "Yes, sir," Heidi said, standing up a little straighter. Her mom always told her to stay calm, never give attitude, be polite. "We were just heading to get food." Granger's eyes dropped to her wrist. "That's a nice watch." Heidi instinctively covered it with her other hand. "Thanks, it was a birthday gift." "A Rolex?" he asked, voice flat. "That's an expensive gift for someone your age." "My mom gave it to me." He stepped closer. Bree took a half step forward, but Heidi subtly shook her head. "Don't escalate. Do you have proof of ownership?" "What?" "The receipt. Box. Anything that shows that watch is yours." Heidi blinked. "Sir, it's on my wrist. My mom gave it to me. I didn't bring the box to the mall." Granger's lips curled just slightly. "You understand there was a report earlier today of a watch matching that description being stolen from a jewelry store downtown?" Bree's jaw dropped. "Wait. What?" "I need you to come with me," Granger said, already reaching for his radio. "For questioning." Heidi's stomach flipped. "I didn't steal anything." "Then you've got nothing to worry about," he said, stepping behind her and pulling out a pair of cuffs. "Whoa, whoa," Bree yelled. "She's 14. She didn't do anything." "Back up," Granger snapped. "This is a law enforcement matter." People were starting to slow down, their phones halfway out of their pockets. A man across the hall lifted his camera. Heidi could feel her face burning, her throat tightening. The cold metal touched her wrists. "I didn't do anything," she whispered again, but it didn't matter. Granger led her toward the service hallway beside the smoothie kiosk. Bree shouted after her, "I'm calling your mom right now!" Heidi looked over her shoulder just before the doors swung closed behind her, and for a second the mall was gone, replaced by walls too white and silence too loud. Granger didn't say much, just told her to sit on a plastic chair in a back room with a flickering light and a file cabinet that hadn't been cleaned in years. "You should really just be honest," he said, as he leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Make this easier for yourself." Heidi's hands were trembling. The cuffs were still on. "I told you. It was a gift. My mom's a police sergeant." Granger chuckled. "Right. And I'm Santa Claus." He turned his back to her and pulled out his phone. Heidi sat there, heart thudding like a drumline in her chest. Every second felt like a hole swallowing her. But she wasn't alone. Not really. Because somewhere out there, Bree was moving fast, and her mom didn't play. Heidi lowered her eyes to the Rolex. It was still gleaming. Let them try to bury her with lies. She was built from truth. The room smelled like old coffee and floor cleaner. Heidi sat on the hard plastic chair, her wrists aching in the cuffs. A clock on the wall ticked louder than anything else. It didn't make sense. How something so normal could sound so violent. Granger leaned against the file cabinet, arms folded, acting like this was just another day. Like detaining a teenage girl for wearing her birthday present was as routine as writing a parking ticket. He glanced at her occasionally, but not like a person. More like he was sizing up a piece of evidence that didn't fit in the story he already decided was true. Heidi didn't cry. She wanted to, but she sat there, eyes forward, jaw tight. She remembered what her mom always said. "Don't give them what they're looking for. Never let them see you break." He finally spoke. "You got a phone, don't you?" She nodded slowly. "Where is it?" "In my jacket pocket." He pushed off the cabinet and walked over, digging into her coat like it was trash. He found the phone, looked at the screen. "You got a passcode?" "I'm not giving you that," she said softly. He raised an eyebrow. "If you got nothing to hide, you'd unlock it." "I still have rights." Granger laughed, shaking his head like she was a toddler who didn't know better. You're 14 and under investigation for theft. You really want to talk to me about rights? She looked down at her shoes. The laces were still double-knotted, just like she'd tied them that morning. The little things grounded her. I didn't steal anything, she repeated, this time louder. That's not what I asked. You think I'm stupid enough to come to the mall wearing a stolen Rolex in broad daylight with cameras everywhere? Granger's smile disappeared. His mouth tightened. You're smarter than I expected, he muttered. Then, like it was supposed to be a compliment, you talk nice. Heidi didn't answer. She just kept breathing, slow and careful, while her fingers twitched against the cuffed steel behind her back. Granger turned away again and stepped outside the room, leaving the door open just a crack. She could hear him talking to someone, probably on the phone, his voice lower now, harder to make out. Then from beyond that door a second voice came through, a familiar one. She's what? Are you kidding me? Heidi's heart jumped. A moment later, Bree's voice got louder. Her mom's a sergeant, you idiot. You're seriously gonna cuff a kid in a mall for looking fly? You're gonna lose your whole job today, for real. Granger barked something unintelligible, and the door slammed shut again. Silence returned like a slap. Heidi exhaled slowly and leaned her head back against the wall. Somewhere in the world, Bree was moving mountains. That thought gave her enough to keep her spine straight. At that exact moment, 10 miles away, Monique Hanson was standing in a checkout line at the grocery store, staring down at her phone with a frown so sharp it made the cashier flinch. The text from Bree was short. A screenshot. A photo. Heidi in cuffs. A white cop standing behind her with a smirk on his face. For 3 long seconds, Monique's brain went silent. Then the world snapped into motion. Keep the groceries, she muttered, tossing a 20 on the counter. I'll be back. She was already halfway to her car before the cashier could say, Ma'am, wait. Monique hit the ignition, threw on her lights because she was in uniform, and tore out of the lot like the tires were screaming with her. She didn't call the mall first. She didn't call Chief Dean yet either. She called Heidi's number. No answer. Second try. No answer. Third try. Straight to voicemail. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, breath catching in her throat. Heidi never ignored her calls. She didn't panic. Monique didn't panic. Panic gets people hurt. But fury she could handle. That was familiar. That was clean. At Brook Lane Galleria, Bree stood just outside the service hallway, phone in hand, face hot with frustration. No, ma'am, I'm telling you, she's been in there almost 15 minutes, she said into the phone, pacing. They wouldn't even let me go with her. He just cuffed her and walked off like it was nothing. And Heidi didn't even flinch. Pause. Yeah, the name tag said Granger. I didn't catch a badge number. I was trying to not get arrested myself. Let's see. Yes, please, hurry. She ended the call and stuffed the phone in her hoodie pocket. Around her, shoppers were still watching, some whispering. Others had moved on. But a few were filming. A few had seen the cuffs. They knew this wasn't right. Back inside, Heidi tried to shift her weight without making noise. Her shoulders were starting to ache from the way her hands were twisted behind her. Granger came back into the room, slower this time, carrying a clipboard. I'm filling out the preliminary paperwork, he said, like he was doing her a favor. So you'll need to... Don't say another word. The voice came from the doorway. Monique Hanson stepped inside, the gold sergeant badge gleaming on her chest like a flame. Her eyes locked onto Heidi, then to the cuffs. Her face didn't change, but something in the air did. It thickened, like everyone forgot how to breathe. Take them off. Granger blinked. Excuse me? I said, take the cuffs off my daughter right now. He's under suspicion for theft, he said, standing up straighter, like he could somehow balance the moment with his height. We got a report. You got nothing, Monique cut in. You don't even have probable cause. You saw a black girl in a mall wearing something expensive and decided that couldn't be right, so you profiled her, detained her, and violated her rights in front of half the food court. Heidi felt the cuffs come off like a weight had lifted off more than just her wrists. Granger moved behind her, fumbling with the key. She told you I was her mother. Yes, but... And you thought she was lying? 14. So your answer to that was to put her in handcuffs. Granger had nothing left. The room had already turned against him. Monique took Heidi's hand and helped her stand. You okay? Heidi nodded once, biting the inside of her cheek. Yeah. Monique turned back to Granger. I'm going to file an internal report. Chief Dean will be hearing about this immediately. You stay in this room and do not move until your supervisor arrives. Granger opened his mouth like he was going to argue, but the words never came. Monique didn't wait. She walked out with Heidi beside her, her hand wrapped around her daughter's like she was 5 years old again, like letting go would let something terrible happen. When they stepped into the main hall, Bree was there waiting. Her face lit up the second she saw Heidi. Heidi, she shouted, running over and throwing her arms around her friend. Yo, thank God. I told you, Heidi mumbled into her hoodie. My mom don't play. Monique gave Bree a small nod. You did good calling me. I'm still shaking, Bree said. I wanted to snatch that man's badge myself. Monique looked down at Heidi's wrist. The Rolex was still there, still gleaming. You ready to go? She asked softly. Heidi hesitated, then shook her head. Actually, can we still go to the food court? Monique blinked, then smiled. Yeah, baby, we can. Because if the world was going to keep trying to break girls like her, then the least they could do was eat while shining. Monique kept a protective arm around Heidi as they walked through the echoing mall hallway, the normal hum of weekend life snapping back around them. Every step they took, eyes followed. Some faces flashed sympathy, others suspicion, but no one said anything. Not to their faces, anyway. Bree trailed close, sending angry texts, her thumbs flying so fast it sounded like rain. They passed a group of security officers near the entrance of the staff hallway, standing in a nervous little huddle. Mr. Douglas Reed, the mall's security manager, stood at the front. He was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, a trim blue suit, and eyes that had seen more trouble than he liked to admit. He recognized Monique instantly. He straightened his tie and tried to appear calm. Sergeant Hanson, he said with a careful nod, I was just coming to find you. Monique stopped, fixing him with a stare that could shatter glass. Mr. Reed, I want the footage from every camera in this corridor and the service hallway, right now. My daughter was detained unlawfully, and I intend to see every second. Heidi could see the flicker of discomfort in Mr. Reed's eyes. He nodded. Of course, if you'll come with me, we can review the tapes in my office. Monique nodded, her hand never leaving Heidi's shoulder. Bree, you can come too. I want someone else to witness this. Mr. Reed led them down the back corridor, past break rooms and locked storage closets, until they reached a small office crowded with monitors and the low hum of electronics. He ushered them in, closed the door, and gestured for them to sit. Monique stood. Heidi sat, feeling the sting in her wrists where the cuffs had been. Bree sat close enough that their knees touched. Mr. Reed tapped a few keys and the security footage appeared. First, the view from the main floor. Heidi and Bree, laughing by the fountain, heads together, the light glinting off the silver watch. Then the food court, the boutique. The moment Granger spotted them. It was all there, each moment replayed with no sound, but all the story anyone needed. Monique watched with her jaw clenched so hard the muscles jumped in her cheek. Bree leaned forward, whispering, See how he followed us? He didn't even look at anyone else. Mr. Reed fast-forwarded to the service hallway. Granger marching Heidi away, hand clamped on her shoulder. The camera angle in the back room wasn't great, but you could see Granger's posture, overbearing, aggressive. You could see Heidi, small and steady, not shrinking away. Mr. Reed cleared his throat. "This is all the footage we have until Sergeant Hanson arrived. You can have copies for your report." Monique nodded. "Thank you. This will help." As he prepared the files, Heidi watched the screen replay the hallway moment. Granger's hand, the cuffs, her own face. It looked like a scene from one of those news stories her mom always talked about, the ones she'd hoped would never happen to her. While they waited, Monique pulled out her phone and finally called Chief Dean. She stepped into the hall, voice low and clipped, explaining everything. Heidi tried not to listen, but it was impossible. Every unlawful, every racial profiling, every "my child" dug deeper than the last. When Monique came back, her face was unreadable. "He's on his way," she said, but her eyes were stormy. Mr. Reed handed her a flash drive. "Everything's on here. I'll give you my statement. I saw the whole thing from the security desk. It looked wrong from the start." Heidi didn't know whether to thank him or feel even sadder that he had to say it out loud. Monique nodded. "We'll need your full account, Mr. Reed. And I want to know if there have been other complaints about this officer." Reed hesitated. "I'm not at liberty to say, but—" He lowered his voice. "I've had concerns before. He's aggressive, quick to assume. I've reported it to the precinct, but nothing's changed." Bree muttered, "Surprise, surprise." Heidi squeezed Bree's hand under the desk. Monique's phone buzzed. She answered immediately, face darkening as she listened. "Yes, Chief. Yes, we're in the security office." She glanced at Heidi and Bree. "Yes, sir." "Understood." She hung up and addressed everyone in the room. "Chief Dean will be here soon. Until then, no one leaves this office except me. Mr. Reed, I'd like you to escort Officer Granger here when he's located." Reed nodded, his face pale. Monique crouched down in front of Heidi. "How you holding up, baby?" Heidi shrugged, but her chin trembled. "I'm okay. My wrists hurt." Monique gently took her hands, checking for marks. "We'll have a doctor look at them, just in case." Heidi glanced at the door, then at the monitors. "It's weird, watching yourself, like it happened to somebody else." Bree nodded, voice shaking. "But it happened to you." "To us." They sat in silence until Mr. Reed returned. "He's on his way up." "With another officer?" Monique straightened, and Heidi found herself sitting up taller too. A few minutes later, the door opened, and Officer Granger entered, flanked by a younger officer whose name tag read Malloy. Granger looked angry, his jaw set and eyes flashing when he saw Monique. "You called for me, Sergeant?" he said, voice tight. Monique stood between Heidi and Granger, radiating calm fury. "You will sit. You will not speak unless spoken to." Granger's eyes flickered to Mr. Reed, to Bree, then back to Monique. He sat. Monique fixed her gaze on him. "You detained my daughter. You cuffed her, humiliated her, accused her of theft without evidence. Do you realize what you've done?" He opened his mouth, but Monique held up a hand. "Don't. Just listen. You saw a black child with something nice and assumed the worst. You didn't check her story. You didn't call her parent. You treated her like a suspect, not a person." Granger bristled. "I was following up on a report." "There was no report about a child. There was a report about a break-in miles away, hours before you even saw my daughter. You made a leap because you thought you could, because she looked like the kind of kid who wouldn't fight back. You profiled her, and you will answer for it." Granger looked away. Monique's voice softened, but it was more dangerous now. "Heidi is my child, but she could be anyone's child. Every kid deserves to feel safe in a place like this." Chief Dean's arrival cut the tension like a knife. He entered with 2 detectives and a presence that drew everyone's eyes. He was tall, graying, his gaze calm but commanding. "Sergeant Hanson." "I've reviewed the footage already," he said, holding up a tablet. "I have a statement from Mr. Reed, and I've seen the social media posts." Heidi's heart skipped. So did Bree's. People had posted? Was this everywhere already? Dean turned to Granger. "Officer, you're relieved of duty. Hand over your badge and weapon to Detective Franklin. There will be a full internal investigation into your conduct." Granger protested. "Chief, with all due respect." Dean cut him off. "Not another word. You're done here. Leave the room." The detective stepped forward. Granger stood, his shoulders hunched, his face red with rage and shame. He dropped his badge and gun on the desk and marched out. Dean turned to Monique. "Are you and Heidi all right?" Monique nodded. "We'll be fine." Dean's expression was grave. This should never have happened. It won't happen again. Heidi watched Granger go, and something like relief, or maybe just exhaustion, seeped through her. Bree reached over and hugged her so tightly it almost hurt. Monique exhaled. It's over now. For today, at least. But Heidi knew the story was just beginning. She saw her own face reflected in the security monitor, shining and small but unbroken. Chief Dean didn't linger in the cramped security office. After Granger was removed, he took a slow breath, then turned his attention to Heidi, Monique, Bree, and Mr. Reed. "I want statements from everyone," he said, voice low but steady. "Let's do this right. No more closed doors." Heidi expected to feel better, safer. Instead, she just felt tired, the tension winding out of her muscles in slow, hesitant waves. Bree kept squeezing her shoulder, maybe more for herself than for Heidi. But Heidi didn't mind. The touch felt real, something she could anchor herself to while the world spun on, out of control. Mr. Reed nodded quickly, pulling out a yellow notepad. He looked older now, more worn, as if the past hour had aged him. Monique moved beside Heidi and gave her a gentle squeeze. "You ready to talk, baby?" Heidi nodded, unsure if her voice would even work. "Yes, ma'am." Chief Dean pulled a chair around and sat facing her, not across the desk but close, like he wanted her to feel the difference between what had just happened and what was supposed to happen. He wasn't rushing her. His eyes were serious, not hard, his hand steady as he held his pen over a fresh page in his own notebook. "Tell me everything," he said. So Heidi did. She started at the beginning, her birthday, her mom's surprise, the velvet box with the heavy, shiny watch. She described her excitement, how proud she'd been to wear it, how normal it had all felt until she noticed the way people stared. She told him about the moment Granger appeared, the way his questions had curled into accusations so fast she barely had time to process it. She described the embarrassment, the confusion, how his hands felt cold and rough as he put the cuffs on her wrists. Chief Dean listened without interrupting, not even when Heidi's voice got shaky, describing the way Granger marched her through the mall, the crowd of strangers with their phones up, the sudden loneliness that felt heavier than the metal on her wrists. She told him how she'd tried to remember everything her mom taught her about staying calm, not fighting, just surviving. When she finished, Dean nodded and wrote for a long time before speaking. "Thank you, Heidi. That took courage." He turned to Bree. "You were with her the whole time?" Bree nodded, voice shaking. "Yes, sir. I tried to tell him it was her birthday gift. I tried to tell him her mom was a cop. He didn't care. He told me to back off, like I was causing trouble just for talking." She squeezed her fists, the anger coming through now. "He just saw two black girls and thought we were up to something. We were just shopping." Monique placed a hand on Bree's arm, grounding her. "You did the right thing, Bree. Calling me, staying there. You were brave, too." Chief Dean gave Bree a gentle nod. "I've seen the footage, you're right. This was profiling, plain and simple. You and Heidi should never have been treated that way. He turned to Mr. Reed next. Your statement, please. Mr. Reed cleared his throat. I was in the security office when I saw Officer Granger approaching the girls. I've seen him do this before, single people out, especially if they look out of place to him. I tried to intervene, but I was too late. By the time I got downstairs, Heidi was already being led away. It didn't look right. It didn't feel right. That's why I immediately started pulling footage and contacting Sergeant Hanson. Chief Dean wrote it all down. Thank you, Mr. Reed. We'll need your official testimony for the investigation. The statements were collected. The mood in the room shifted. Some of the fear bled away, replaced by determination. The process was slow, but it felt different now. More like healing, less like damage. Monique's phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen, and her brow furrowed. It's the press, she said quietly. They saw the video online. They want a comment. Chief Dean frowned. Don't say anything just yet. Let us finish here first. Outside, the hum of the mall continued. Heidi could hear laughter and conversation through the walls, as if another universe was living its ordinary Saturday just feet away. But inside the office, nothing would ever be the same. The door opened again. Detective Franklin entered, carrying Granger's badge and gun. He's been escorted out. We have him on body cam from the moment he approached the girls. Mall security confirmed there were no reports matching his story, no jewelry store theft in this area, no stolen watches reported. Chief Dean looked tired but satisfied. Thank you, Detective. He turned to Monique. You know I'll do everything I can, but I need you to sign a formal complaint so we can move forward. Granger's record, he's had other complaints, but nothing like this. This time it's all on camera. We have statements, footage, and social media. The community's going to demand justice. Monique's eyes narrowed. That's what I want. For Heidi, for Bree, for every kid who gets looked at like they don't belong. Heidi felt a strange mix of relief and pride. For the first time since the day started, she saw her mom not just as the person who fought for her, but as someone who fought for everyone. She wished she could hug her right there in front of all these adults. But she settled for leaning close and breathing in her mom's familiar scent, sweat, lavender, and resolve. Detective Franklin set up a tablet for Monique to fill out the complaint. She tapped through the forms with quick, decisive movements, her focus absolute. While Monique worked, Mr. Reed offered Heidi a bottle of water. She took it, sipping carefully, not trusting her hands to be totally steady yet. Bree sat beside her, eyes fixed on the ground. Do you think it'll really matter? Bree whispered. Like, do you think anything will change? Heidi thought about it, the question hanging heavy. I don't know, she whispered back. But maybe this time it has to. Chief Dean stood up and stretched. I'm going to speak to the media outside. If you don't want to talk, I can handle it for now. But Heidi, Bree, if you want your voices heard, you're welcome to join me. Monique looked at Heidi. It's up to you, baby. Heidi hesitated, then nodded. I want people to know what happened. I want them to know I didn't do anything wrong. Bree's face broke into a small, fierce grin. Let's go. They followed Chief Dean out of the office, through the staff corridor and into the main mall entrance. A crowd had gathered near the sliding glass doors. Reporters, shoppers, a few protesters with homemade signs. Someone had already started a chant, "Justice for Heidi!" The sight made Heidi's heart race. Cameras flashed, microphones pushed forward, questions shot at them all at once. Chief Dean held up his hands for quiet. We're here to address what happened this afternoon, he began. A young black girl was profiled, detained, and handcuffed by an officer who acted outside of department protocol. The incident was caught on camera. We are launching a full investigation and will act swiftly to ensure this never happens again. He turned, inviting Heidi to step forward if she wished. For a split second, The world seemed to pause. Bree nudged her gently. Heidi swallowed, then took a breath and spoke, voice wavering but strong. "My name is Heidi Hanson. I'm 14 years old. I came to the mall to have fun with my best friend. I wore a birthday gift from my mom, a watch. I didn't do anything wrong, but someone decided I didn't belong here because of how I look. I want people to know it's not okay to treat anybody like that. Not ever." Her words echoed. Some in the crowd clapped, some just nodded with tears in their eyes. Monique squeezed Heidi's hand, holding her tight in the glare of the camera lights. Chief Dean nodded at Bree. "Anything you want to add?" Bree stepped up, chin high. "I want every kid who looks like me to know you're not alone. People see us. People care. And we're gonna keep fighting." The crowd swelled with noise, some chanting, others shouting words of support. Chief Dean finished the conference, promising transparency and change. The reporters pressed for more, but he shielded Heidi and Bree, ushering them away as mall security led them back inside. Back in the corridor, Monique knelt and hugged Heidi tightly, whispering, "You did good, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." Heidi let herself relax for the first time all day, leaning into the hug, feeling her mom's heart beating steady and strong. Mr. Reed came over with the detectives. "The footage is being sent to Internal Affairs. This will be handled," he promised. "You changed something today, Heidi. More than you know." Heidi looked around, at her mom, at Bree, at the officers and the strangers who'd supported her. She realized truth didn't just walk in. Sometimes you had to drag it out into the open, no matter who tried to keep it locked behind closed doors. And maybe, just maybe, things could really start to change. After the press conference, the atmosphere in Brooklane Galleria changed. Where there had been hushes and sideways glances, there was now the low rumble of conversation, people moving with urgency, phones pressed to ears and fingers flying across screens. It was as if everyone realized all at once that they just witnessed something much bigger than a misunderstanding in a shopping mall. Heidi, Monique, and Bree made their way back into the quieter corridors, trailed by Chief Dean and Detective Franklin, and the echoes of support that followed them like a shadow. Bree still looked fired up, glancing at her phone every few seconds as notifications rolled in. "Your story's everywhere, girl," she whispered, barely able to contain her disbelief. "People are sharing it. Like, everywhere. Look." She turned her screen to Heidi, showing her dozens of mentions, hashtags, and video clips. Comments poured in. "We stand with Heidi." "Racism in broad daylight." "That cop needs to go." Heidi's stomach flooded with nerves and something else. A quiet, unfamiliar strength. It was out there now. Her pain, her humiliation, but also her courage. And the world was watching. Monique guided them back toward the security office where Mr. Reed waited. The mall's security staff had regrouped, keeping an eye on the situation but no longer hiding in corners. As they entered, Chief Dean gave Mr. Reed a brief nod and motioned for everyone to sit. Even though the day's ordeal wasn't over, there was a sense that the truth had become a living thing, impossible to cage again. Chief Dean's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, then spoke quietly to Detective Franklin. "The department's public information officer says news outlets have picked up the story already. There are calls from city officials and a few national reporters want interviews." Monique's jaw tightened. "We need to make sure this doesn't get spun the wrong way. Heidi isn't a headline, she's a kid." Chief Dean met her gaze, somber. "She's both now, Sergeant. But we'll protect her as much as we can." Mr. Reed cleared his throat. "I just got off the phone with mall management. They're preparing a statement. They want it known they didn't support the officer's actions, and there's been a steady stream of people coming by the office wanting to leave messages for Heidi. Flowers, cards, even a couple of teddy bears." He managed a small smile, eyes gentle. Heidi looked down at her hands, twisting the cap on her water bottle. I didn't want all this, she murmured. Monique placed a steady hand on her shoulder. You didn't ask for it, but you handled it. That means something, not just for you, but for everyone who's ever been made to feel like they don't belong. Bree gave a quiet, determined nod. Yeah, you showed everybody you're not backing down. That matters. Before anyone could say more, there was a knock at the door. A detective stepped aside as a new face entered, a woman in a sharp navy suit carrying a tablet and a small camera. I'm Ms. Carter from Internal Affairs, she announced. I'll be collecting statements and ensuring all evidence is preserved. Officer Granger has been escorted off the premises. He's suspended pending investigation. Chief Dean introduced everyone. Ms. Carter moved quickly, businesslike. I have Granger's body cam footage, statements from all present, the mall security videos, and copies of all social media clips. I'll need to verify chain of custody with Mr. Reed. She gave Heidi a softer look. You're very brave. The footage is clear. You did nothing wrong. I want you to know the department takes this very seriously. You'll be updated at every step. Heidi nodded, unsure what to say. All the adults in the room seemed suddenly very far away, talking in low, urgent tones about policy, process, investigations. Bree leaned over. You want to get out of here for a sec? Fresh air? Heidi nodded, grateful. Monique caught her eye, and when Heidi mouthed, "Just a minute," her mother nodded with understanding. They slipped outside, stepping into the small mall courtyard, away from cameras and questions. It was quieter here. Heidi breathed in deep, feeling the air on her skin, the weight in her chest slowly beginning to lift. Bree was the first to break the silence. I was so scared, she admitted. When that cop grabbed you, I wanted to scream, but I was so scared. I kept thinking, what if no one believed us? What if it got worse? Heidi's voice trembled. Me too. It happened so fast. 1 second we were joking about fries, and the next... She trailed off, but Bree nodded, understanding every unfinished sentence. They sat on a low planter wall, watching the afternoon sun filter through the glass ceiling. My mom always says it's not enough to just survive stuff like this, Heidi said quietly. You have to do something with it. But I just wanted to buy sneakers, you know? Bree laughed, a little watery but genuine. Well, you definitely did something. People are listening now. As they sat, a small girl approached, maybe 8 years old, holding her mother's hand. She looked at Heidi with wide, solemn eyes. Are you the girl from the video? She asked, barely louder than a whisper. Heidi blinked, surprised. Yeah, that's me. The little girl smiled shyly. You're really brave. My maman said you stood up for yourself. That's good. I want to be like that when I'm big. Her mother nodded with a smile of her own. Thank you, she said to Heidi, for showing them who you are. Heidi felt tears prick at her eyes, but she smiled back. Thank you, she managed, her heart feeling lighter. After a few minutes, they returned inside. Ms. Carter had finished her interviews, and Chief Dean was on a call with city officials, his voice calm but authoritative. Monique greeted Heidi with a soft hug, relief written all over her face. A short while later, Mr. Reed returned, carrying a box filled with letters and small gifts. People wanted you to have these, he said, setting it on the table. Heidi opened the box and saw notes in all kinds of handwriting, some scribbled in crayon, others typed, many simply saying, "Thank you, Heidi," or "You matter." She picked up a letter and read aloud. You are brave. You made me proud. Don't ever let anyone make you feel less than you are. Bree grinned. You got a whole fan club now. Monique smiled through her fatigue. This is what change looks like, even when it's hard. Heidi found herself thinking about the other kids watching, kids who'd seen the video, who knew the fear of being singled out for nothing more than being themselves. She wanted to talk to them. She wanted them to know they weren't invisible. Chief Dean finished his call and turned to them. "The department's going to announce new training for officers. We'll start with a public forum, invite community voices, including yours. Heidi, if you want." Heidi considered it, heart pounding. She thought of that little girl in the courtyard, of all the eyes on her now. "I do want to," she said quietly. "If it helps even one person feel safer, I'll do it." Chief Dean nodded with approval. "You have a platform now. Use it how you want. We'll support you." "Yes, that's it." Bree beamed at her friend. "You got this, Heidi." As the day slipped toward evening, Monique gathered up the box of notes and tucked an arm around Heidi. "Ready to go home?" she asked softly. Heidi looked at her mom, at Bree, at the adults who'd fought for her, and the strangers who'd spoken up. She thought about how much had changed in a few hours, how much more work there was to do. But for now she nodded, feeling the warmth of her mother's love and the strength in her own chest. "Yeah," she said, "I'm ready." They left them all together, stepping out into the golden light, carrying truth, hope, and the knowledge that even when the world tries to silence you, your story can change everything. The world didn't pause for Heidi Hanson. News cycles rolled on, social media buzzed, and within a few days another video, another name, another story appeared in the feed. But this time, Heidi's name stayed. Her story echoed, not just in the halls of Brooklyn Galleria, but in classrooms, kitchens, and community centers. The story of a 14-year-old girl who wore her birthday present with pride and refused to be made small. Heidi lay on her bed, arms folded under her head, staring at the shadows moving across her ceiling as the afternoon sun shifted outside. She could hear the clatter of pans in the kitchen and the hum of her mother's voice as Monique chatted with someone on speakerphone. Heidi's phone blinked every few minutes with another notification. Messages from classmates, old neighbors, kids she didn't even know. Most were supportive. Some were angry on her behalf. A few, still, were ugly. She'd learned quickly to scroll past those. A knock on her door brought her back to the present. Bree peeked her head in, holding 2 sodas and a plastic bag of snacks. "You up for some victory snacks? Or are you still hiding from the world?" Bree grinned, but her eyes searched Heidi's face for cracks. Heidi sat up, pulling her knees close. "I'm not hiding, just thinking." Bree plopped down beside her, shoving a soda into Heidi's hand. "Thinking's overrated. You already did the brave stuff. Now you get to eat chips and watch bad movies with your best friend." She wiggled her eyebrows, making Heidi laugh for the first time all afternoon. "I still can't believe it," Heidi said after a moment. "I keep waiting for someone to say it's over, like, just go back to being regular." Bree tore open the snack bag. "Sorry, girl. Regular doesn't exist anymore. You're famous, but at least you're famous for something real." Heidi turned that over, unsure if it was good or bad. She knew it mattered, though. People had started writing letters, telling their own stories. Some were older people who'd never spoken up before. Some were parents, grateful for her courage. A few were kids her age, scared but proud, saying they'd been through the same thing and now maybe, just maybe, they felt a little less alone. Monique appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with a tired but peaceful smile. "They just called," she said. "Granger's officially been fired. The department's issuing an apology. And Chief Dean wants to know if you'd like to speak at the town hall next week. You'd be on the news again." Heidi blinked, looking down at the silver watch still snug around her wrist. She ran her finger over the smooth band, thinking about all the hands that had tried to snatch her joy and all the hands that had held her steady. "I want to do it," she said, voice quiet but sure. "If it'll help even one person feel seen." Monique crossed the room, hugged her daughter, and let out a long breath she'd been holding since that day in the mall. "I'm proud of you. Not for being brave in public, for being honest with yourself and with everybody else. That's what changes things. Ree cheered. And if they put your speech on TV, wear that same hoodie. It's iconic. Heidi rolled her eyes, but grinned. What if I just want to wear pajamas? You're a trendsetter, Bree replied. You could show up in a dinosaur onesie and people would still listen. They all laughed, the sound bright and warm, filling the room. The stress of the past week eased for a moment, replaced by the simple comfort of home, friendship, and belonging. That evening, the Hansons' living room filled up with neighbors, friends, even a few of Heidi's teachers. Everyone brought something: casseroles, cookies, homemade cards. Someone had made a poster that read, "Shine, Heidi, shine," and stuck it above the TV. Heidi sat cross-legged on the couch, while Bree organized the snacks and Monique bustled around, accepting hugs and shaking hands. For the first time, Heidi saw her mom not just as a fierce protector, but as the pillar of a community, someone who quietly lifted everyone up. Midway through the evening, Chief Dean stopped by. He wore plain clothes, his usual badge of office replaced by a tired, gentle gratitude. "I wanted to see you, Heidi. Off the clock. I've sat in a lot of rooms, but I don't think I've ever seen something handled with as much dignity as you showed that day." He offered his hand, but Heidi hugged him instead, catching him by surprise and making the whole room chuckle. Dean patted her shoulder. "You helped us remember what policing is supposed to be about. The City Council approved new mandatory training today. Implicit bias, community engagement, youth advisory panels. And you, if you want, have an open seat at the table. You can help us make sure no one gets treated the way you did." Heidi met his gaze, serious for a moment. "I'll do it. But only if you really listen to everyone." Chief Dean smiled. "That's exactly what we need." After he left, Monique wrapped Heidi in a tight hug. "You did more than stand up for yourself. You made things safer for other kids. You turned pain into something powerful." Heidi rested her head on her mom's shoulder, feeling that quiet, steady love. "I couldn't have done it without you, or Bree, or everybody." She looked around the room, saw all the faces watching her, supporting her, and felt the truth of it settle deep inside. Bree, always the practical one, nudged her. "Speech practice starts tomorrow, but for tonight you get to be a regular kid. I vote scary movies and ice cream." Heidi snorted. "You're just trying to get me to jump so you can finish all the snacks." "I plead the fifth," Bree replied, tossing a pillow at her. Laughter rippled through the room again. The air was full of hope, of beginnings, of healing. Later that night, after the guests left and the house was quiet, Heidi sat by her bedroom window, looking out at the city lights. She thought about that day. How small she'd felt in those handcuffs, how huge the world seemed when it stared at her. She thought about all the voices, all the stories, all the kids she'd never meet but who might feel a little braver tomorrow because she'd stood up today. She lifted her wrist, letting the Rolex catch the moonlight. The metal was cool, solid and real, like her, like the truth. Down the hall, she heard her mother laugh, then Bree's voice chiming in. Heidi smiled. She wasn't alone. She never had been. Married attachment. Studies show only half the benefits. That is, in the days that followed, Heidi's life changed in small, steady ways. People at school stopped to say hello. Teachers asked her to speak in class, and neighbors waved from across the street. She joined the youth advisory panel with Chief Dean, sharing ideas, asking hard questions, making sure every voice mattered. The story didn't fade, it grew, one conversation at a time. But the biggest change was inside Heidi. She knew what it meant to be seen, and she promised herself to never let anyone shrink her again. She wore her watch proudly, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Shine anyway. When the next town hall came, she stood on stage with Monique and Bree in the front row. She spoke about fairness, courage, and hope, about how the worst day of her life became the first day of something better. She finished with the words she'd written on her mirror. "We deserve to feel safe, we deserve to be seen, and we will not be silent." The crowd rose to their feet, the applause ringing out, bright as the sun after a long, hard storm. And that, for Heidi Hanson, was more than a happy ending. It was a whole new beginning.